Razia, Rangrage. Now, it is Suicide Prevention Week, a very important topic. I'm going to be chatting with clinical psychologist Dr. Nazia Iram Osman. Now, suicidality is a critical global issue, reflecting the profound challenges individuals face with mental health, societal pressures, and personal crises. According to the World Health Organization, over 700,000 people die by suicide every year, making it one of the leading causes of death worldwide. The complexities surrounding it involve not just individual struggles, but also broader socio-economic, cultural, and environmental factors. Addressing suicidality requires a multi-faceted approach that includes awareness, mental health support, community involvement, and the dismantling of stigma, inshallah. So let's welcome Dr. Nazia Iram Osman back to Urban Women, who will be shedding more light on this very important topic. Assalamu alaikum, Doctor.
Wa alaikum salam, Razia, and to all our beloved Urban Women listeners.
So wonderful to hear your voice and connect with you. This is a topic, that I think touches many of our hearts. Can you please explain why suicidality is such a pressing concern globally?
Okay, so it is quite a taboo subject, but globally, it's the second leading cause of death amongst young people. So 12 to 19-year-olds. This is the second most common cause of death. In South Africa alone, every day we have 23 suicides, successful suicides. And for each 23, there are 10 more reported attempts. That means 10 more people have ended up in hospital because of it. Right. But imagine how many are not reported. So those numbers are really big. And this is getting worse because before COVID, what it was, and now what it is a whole, I think the SADC, South African Depression and Anxiety Group, said it's 40% worse. The amount of calls they used to get for suicide attempts from youth is 40% higher now than it was prior to 2020.
Allah.
So this demands urgent attention because it is getting worse.
Absolutely. I mean, those 23, and then it just increases. And as you said, what about those numbers or those incidents that are just not reported? And, I want to focus on the Indian community specifically, so we can speak from the heart and we can relate to a lot. You mentioned that there's cultural factors, of course, that often play a role in how mental health and suicidality are approached. Can you share or elaborate a little more on some of the challenges we may face in our community?
Yeah. So, I think we think this is other people's problems. Like this is not something that affects us, but this does affect us. That being said, I have to say, the Indian community itself, there are certain groups that are more prone to it. Like, alhamdulillah, as a Muslim community, mashallah, our numbers are lower.
Alhamdulillah.
But it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen with us.
Correct.
So, I found an old study that said the Muslim community is lower, but just say, for example, the Hindu community, especially within the Tamil community, the numbers are quite high. And there may be many reasons for that. But shukr alhamdulillah, because the Quran is so firm on the fact that, this is not an act that is encouraged, alhamdulillah, it obviously has some impact on us. But that being said, what is it in our Indian community that could be putting pressure? And I'm talking more about the youth because it does affect them more. So the one thing that I've noticed is that we don't talk about things. If things are brewing, if we're having a tough time, we're not really open to discussing things as a community. So vulnerability is seen as a weakness. If there's family conflict, we prefer harmony. We'll be seething, but we won't say, hey, you know what, I don't appreciate how you said that to me. And unfortunately, we suppress emotions. And by suppressing emotions, we are actually creating pressure for them especially for our children, to behave in a certain way, and they may not like it. And then they can't turn to us. Now, or even the whole other thing, we as a community are very driven, we're very ambitious, alhamdulillah, we're great with our education. If you look at the universities, most of our children are studying, alhamdulillah. But do we give them a chance to see what they actually want to do? Maybe they don't want to become a doctor, lawyer, engineer. There's actually a term for it. It's called, I don't know if I got my pronunciation, an anomie, which basically means when an individual's desire doesn't match their societal norms, they actually feel pressure. And this kind of pressure can make them prone to suicidal thoughts and behavior.
Allahu Akbar.
So imagine this, if there's an actual term for it, it's saying to us, we need to make more space for our children.
Absolutely. And we all learn, I think, like how you and I were programmed, generations,
Yeah.
and we just keep playing out that generation pattern, so to say, until we learn. And it's not serving us any longer, because if there's suicidal thoughts coming in and attempts, and people are actually going forward, imagine what a dark, deep hole and space they are in for the waswas of shaitan to become so loud, because then the akhirah is then doomed. May Allah protect everybody, inshallah. Now, looking at this whole topic, one can only wonder, what are some of the key risk factors for suicide, particularly in our community, Dr. Nazia?
So one of the big ones that I've noticed is substance use. And this may be one of the reasons that, shukr alhamdulillah, we're not seeing as high rates in the Muslim community as in the other communities.
Right.
So substance, when someone is under the influence of alcohol or something like that, their reservations are lower. They actually will act on impulses much higher. This impairs judgment. So that is a huge risk factor. Another one is exposure to violence. So the more they have seen violence, the more, let's just say, the father in the house or whomever it is slaps them around, and this is the norm. Right. And sadly, in a country like South Africa, we are a very violent society, right? So the more exposure they have to violence and aggression, the more this can actually become an option in their head. If they have limited access to healthcare, if they have limited access to help, if they don't know that, hey, I can go to a psychologist or I can go to a social worker, I can get help in that way, or if I tell my teacher or whatever, if they don't know how to access help, then obviously they will feel more hopeless. Correct. And this also creates, right? If they have a mental health condition, or if someone in the home has a mental health condition, this can, like, for example, if they are depressed or anxious, they would feel their feelings so much worse. They feel despondent. Also, if they have a physical health condition. So people that have physical health conditions don't want to end up, let's just say, reliant on anyone else. And then they start looking for avenues that, hey, how do I get out of here, shall we say? Yeah. A big one, a very big one, and this we have to look at our elderly especially, is the feeling of loneliness. If people start feeling lonely and misunderstood, this opens them up to a whole different, I can't even tell you, mental health conditions, depression, anxiety, OCD, and feelings of suicidality. So loneliness is a big, big, big factor. That's one of our major killers. And another one is a family history of suicide. So if someone has done it, especially a parental figure, right, it becomes an option in the child's mind.
Wow.
There are certain people who are, more at risk. For example, I said adolescents.
Right.
That age, 12 to 19, they feel everything. So that age is something we have to watch for. Females attempt more, but males go through with it more. So females will attempt more, but men are 4 times more likely to actually kill themselves. Wow. So when a male comes to us and says, we take it, I know I say it's horrible to say, but so much more seriously, because there's a very good chance they could act on it.
Wow. This is shocking reality, and something that, we can't allow to continue to just be taboo, because imagine somebody's in the space, and I think it's so important that we actually are able to recognize some of the red flags, so to say. So what would you say, Dr. Nazia, how can we then as a community, because this is crucial, I mean, it's a whole life going, it's just a matter of the person being guided to knowing that they can get help, it's not the end of the world, and of course helping them to come out of that mindset or the space that they're in, which is not so easy to come out on your own, by yourself, of course. So as a community, what would you say, how do we recognize and actually address the warning signs or the red flags of suicidality?
So I'm going to answer that question, but I also want to bring up that men, why do you think men end up acting on this more?
Because they don't speak so much?
Exactly that. So I think this is one of the answers to how do we pick up the red flags. Men don't speak up more because we as a community don't allow them to be seen in vulnerability. Correct. If a man cries, we're like, you're being a bit of a sop here, right? I mean, come on, man up. Or we don't say it, the other men will say it. Indeed. So we're not creating safe enough spaces for people to be vulnerable, for people, especially men. So a thing we can do as a community is to, allow more spaces and watch. Let's just say you see a warning sign where a man, or anyone for that matter, but I'm saying a man because women are known for better help-seeking behavior. We don't think twice about going even for a doctor for a cold or whatever, or something's bugging us. We'll turn to our friend, you know what I did today?
Yeah.
Like we can talk
We're more emotional
We'll
beings.
Yeah, we'll reach out more.
Correct.
Especially in the males, sometimes we have to keep eye for the warning signs. And this may be that just say someone is chatty and all of a sudden they're not so chatty.
Right.
Or their mood has dropped, or they're not showing interest in what they used to show interest before. They're not coming for the family functions. Their personality has changed, and they're making darker jokes, like jokes about death. Oh, whatever, like, oh, if I die, it would be okay, or whatever. Like, you'll hear the humor actually getting darker, and that's not how that person was before. It might be an idea to go, hey, you know what? You're not sounding yourself. Is everything okay?
Right.
So you'll actually open up that space. Approach, the big thing is to approach respectfully, approach with empathy, allow them to share their feelings. You don't have to become their crutch. Get them to the professional help.
Correct.
If you think they are in danger, like you really think, this guy has a gun.
Yeah.
And I think he can, if he really wanted to, he could harm himself. Go to the family members. I've noticed this mood. Have you also noticed it? Find out, because if they have a plan in place, there's a very good chance they could go through with it. We can take them to the hospital, even if they don't want to. So you can take them, even if they don't want to, and then they'll keep them under a 72-hour watch, and they will get the psychologist, they will get the psychiatrist if meds are needed, because most of the time there is an underlying depression.
And you know what's the sad part? Okay, coming back to men, I think you're so right. Men, stereotypically, this is what men have to do: be strong, be macho, you don't have emotions. So, and I think that's why statistically they say men actually suffer more with heart attacks than women, because of course they're keeping everything inside. Now, Dr. Nazia, there's some other thing that I think is quite concerning, or other factor, shall I say, is when you think somebody is strong enough, or their iman is strong enough, and they're telling you about their challenges, but you're advising, and you don't ever think a person could go in that way, because you don't see those red flags that you are saying right now. Perhaps they may just become more angry as a person, and that's the only thing you're seeing. And the next thing is they attempt suicide. So how does one or family also cope with that? Because there's this whole lot of questions that you end up sitting with also.
Yeah. So, the thing is, as a family, this is such a tough one. And let's just say the person attempted suicide and they were not successful. As a family, there can be a lot of like, I'm shocked. I don't know what to do with this. How do I even react around you? Am I allowed to talk about it? Am I allowed to have feelings around it? I'm angry too. Why don't you turn to me? Or I'm afraid. So the family themselves might need to go for therapy or whatever to manage their own emotions. But I think the important thing is to talk to this person about what happened and what got you here, and how can I make it a safe space so we don't lose you? How can I make it a safe space that we can have communication around it? A very important factor, Razia, is, with all due respect and with all the best intentions, some people will try to use judgment to turn that person off from trying suicide. So they'll say, do you know you're going to go to hell? Or do you know you're going to your soul will be roving everywhere? Or do you know, like some people would say, if you have depression, your iman is not strong or something. I've heard these stories, right?
That's true.
Now, shaming a person is not going to make them feel loved and cared for. So you may be right. Everything you're saying may be 100% true. But will this help us bring them back? Because they will feel, the core thing is that they feel alone, they feel misunderstood, and they feel that there's no other way.
Correct.
That's the big thing.
And there's no value
in their mind, there's no option.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also, like, there's no value in me as well. There's no option. And look, I'm already doomed. Listen to what I'm hearing. And of course, I think that's just the tactics of Shaitan to come and kind of like expand that space that they're in. So yes, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam always used love to help anybody. And that's the path that we need to step into: compassion, help, understanding, empathy, and step out of that space of judgment. In summary, Dr. Nazia, what steps can we take as a community to effectively address and also prevent suicidality, especially within our community?
Okay, so I think as a community, alhamdulillah, we are close-knit. We may be even called conservative by others. And these can be great factors. But the one thing that it holds us back is stigma around things, shame brought on things. I think if we can reduce the stigma around mental health, by just say normalizing therapy, normalizing reaching out, normalizing men being able to talk about their vulnerabilities and their feelings, allowing our children to making their own decisions, opening up the dialogue, I think it will lead to better emotional well-being.
Correct.
So I think, being supportive, being open, I think education, maybe making it a point of educating your children on these kind of things, showing them the resources that are available, letting them know about the toll-free numbers that, that they can access, and getting them to seek help early can prevent them feeling alone and despondent and misunderstood. So prevention is a very, very big one.
Prevention obviously is better than cure, right? So you are just listening to you. I think it's so important that we teach our children also how to communicate. So when your children come to you, allow them to speak. Often we don't want to, or maybe we're busy, we don't know how to handle what they're saying. We don't have time to deal with that right now. But we have to teach them how to communicate, how to feel their emotions, how to express it so that they can feel like, I'm sharing this, there's a solution, and the parents can guide them as well. And inshallah, that can also prevent this. And as you say, educate. And I'm going to just say, I know it's the Urban Women's Show, but let's say to all the urban men out there, hats off to you that has the courage and is brave enough to allow yourself to be vulnerable and feel your emotions, because that's where your help and your strength actually is. Sounds counterintuitive, but it's so true. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Nazia, for your time. I know you probably have to get to your next patient now. We do appreciate the valuable information that you shared. Any parting words for urban women listeners this morning?
So I think the big one is when people are going through things like this, they don't feel cared for. Just being there and show you care. As simple as that, as overwhelming as it may seem and you don't know what to say, just being there and showing that you care. That is just enough.
Well said. Just be present with the person, and that's all you can do is hold that energy for them. Beautiful ending, wonderful, profound words. Until we connect again, Dr. Nazia, wonderful as well. Always chatting to you. Until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
That was Dr. Nazia Iram Osman chatting with us about a very important topic. Yes, we think it's taboo, but it's does it really help to take the issues that we're facing as a society, shove it under the carpet, because there's this sense of stigma and fear of what will people say? Allahu Akbar. Can we step out of that whole fear? So indoctrinated by the fear of what will people say. Can we have the guts and say, what would Allah Azza wa Jal say? People are going to go through stuff. It's not our space to judge anybody, but it is our place to be there to support them, to help them, to guide them, to just be present, give them that love and guide them, because we don't know when we could be in that dark space and when we would need somebody who would have that ability to help us through that. This is dunya. It's tough. It's a journey. We're going to be faced with all sorts, so to say, like Smarties, right? What a lot I've got. All sorts of stuff is going to come our way. But may Allah Azza wa Jal guide us. May Allah Azza wa Jal put mercy in our hearts. Remember, if we have mercy to humanity, Allah Azza wa Jal will have mercy to us, and never judge. Leave that to who has the right to, and that is only Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah Azza wa Jal make it easy for everybody, whoever is in a dark space, whoever may be going through whatever. You know who you are, you know what you're facing, you know the thoughts that you may be experiencing. Allah Azza wa Jal save us all from the waswas of shaitan. Help us to plug into him and rely solely on him. Ameen. Positive vibes with Razia.